Imagine this. You're exploring the wasteland when suddenly you find yourself coming under fire. But something is a bit off. You're not hearing the mechanical whip-like crack of a typical ballistics weapon. You're not seeing the usual dust and debris being kicked up by a bullet ricocheting off the ground or hitting a nearby concrete wall. Instead of the sound of fireworks or balloons popping, you hear a click and a quick hum buzz by you. Instead of seeing a fractured concrete pillar or dust being kicked up, you see blackened burn marks. You realize that you're not taking fire from a traditional small arm, but rather an advanced energy weapon. Surrounded, it's not long before the enemy finds their mark. In exactly 1 instant, your existence has come to an end. Welcome to 1000 Ways to Die in the Wastes. This is a series where we discuss in PG-13 visceral detail just how brutal the wasteland can be, even if the video games don't do it justice. Last episode we discussed just how brutal a mutant pest can be with the bloatfly. Today we're going to go over just how much damage one of the most iconic weapons in Fallout can dish out. Vaporization from a laser rifle is one of the worst ways to go. The laser guns that we most often find within the Fallout games are known as the AER9. Presumably there were 8 other prior iterations to the most common one we see within the wasteland. While not the most advanced laser weapon in pre-war America, it was the most reliable, as the newer state-of-the-art AER12 was prone to breaking down more often, and the AER14 never made it past the prototyping stage. What may be surprising to some is that the use of laser weapons is a relatively newer concept within the Fallout universe. By the time of the Sino-American War in the late 2060s and 2070s, the implementation of laser-based weaponry wasn't very widespread. Still, several models of some type of laser rifle saw use by the United States military. For example, there was word of a Marine sniper making use of the Wattz laser rifle in the conflict in Nanjing, China, and the Fallout 4 intro cutscene shows some soldiers holding a laser rifle. Still, many foot soldiers stuck with their standard issue R91, as seen in the Operation Anchorage simulation. Due to the ammo usage in the games, one might think that the use of laser rifles came alongside the invention of the microfusion cell in 2066. But in practice, any sort of battery could power the weapon. While there are many models of the laser rifle, they all operate on similar principles and mechanisms. According to the Fort Independence Research Terminal, the laser rifle works by drawing power from a power source, usually a microfusion cell, and passing this energy through a wave particle diverter to emit a beam of light. This high-energy light is then passed through several precision-cut lenses that make up a titanium-housed crystal array. This array focuses the energy into the highly concentrated beam that is then emitted from the gun's barrel. It may seem a bit weird that it's a light that is dishing out the damage, but if something hits you with enough energy, whether it be in the form of heat or kinetic, it can prove to be lethal. We'll get more into this a bit later. While the weapons were expertly engineered tools of destruction, proper maintenance was required. According to the Weapon Information Research Database in the Citadel, as with all energy weapons, the AER9 can suffer from poor performance if not properly maintained. The crystal arrays and non-mechanical components are delicate, and if not properly serviced, can lead to a loss of beam intensity, overheating, and energy regulation failure. And again from the Fort Independence Terminal, diverters are protected by carbon fiber housing, preventing frequent malfunction. But when a diverter fails, the weapon becomes unusable, and this part is extremely difficult to replace or repair. So yes, while the weapons were quite state-of-the-art, proper care was required to keep these weapons operating at peak efficiency. If not, your lethal laser lance might turn into a lousy laser pointer. The delicate nature of the newer models, such as the AER12, is a big reason why we only ever find the AER9 in the games. The sturdiness of the 9 meant that they would still be operable 200 years later. With the sort of history and mechanical workings of the weapon covered, let's take a look into some of the science of the weapon, and what exactly makes it one of the worst ways to go. Little disclaimer: 1. I'm no physics expert. 2. Fallout takes place in a world that uses imagined science. And 3. Despite real-world advances in the field of using lasers as weapons, the Fallout lasers, as they appear in games, wouldn't be feasible or practical in real life. With that being said, let's try and marry some real-life scientific concepts with what we see in the games. A unique feature of these weapons, whether it was intentionally designed this way or not, is that in some cases a well-placed shot will entirely vaporize the target. Vaporization in science is the rapid change of a substance from a liquid to a gas, for example from liquid water to water vapor. This can most commonly occur through evaporation or boiling. In a more colloquial or familiar sense, the term vaporization is used to describe an object being blasted into many small pieces. We see this term most often used in sci-fi, like Fallout, or even in real life, like during the 1952 Ivy Mike thermonuclear test. The very first full-scale test of a thermonuclear device saw the partial vaporization of the Enuitak Atoll in the Pacific. The blast left the island with a nearly 2-kilometer, or 1¼ mile, wide crater. In this sense, a very fast, high-energy blast is literally tearing molecules apart. The atomic bonds that were once holding all physical things together are lost, resulting in all the matter that was once there to become a very hot gas of nuclei and electrons. After time it cools and the matter condenses and bonds to each other, forming dust or ash. What was once rocks, trees, and grass is now ash. And this similar concept is applied to Fallout. While not every laser weapon shot will lead to vaporization, some do. In past games, scoring a critical death blow on an enemy would turn their remains into ashes. In Fallout 4 and 76, vaporization occurs more often, not necessarily requiring a critical strike. In either case, the target quickly glows red across their entire body before crumpling into a pile of dust. They are vaporized. But how much energy would it take to vaporize a human? Well, luckily for me, the YouTube channel Nerdist actually made a video 7 years ago explaining it. You should go check that out after this. In that video, Kyle explains that to vaporize the water content of a human, it would take nearly 3 billion joules of energy, equivalent to 2 lightning bolts, or the same amount of energy to melt 5,000 pounds of steel. That is quite a bit, especially considering that all this energy would be coming from a single well-placed trigger pull from a weapon that anyone could carry and operate. When compared to the R91 assault rifle, a 5.56mm round delivers around 1700 joules of energy, 3 billion versus 1700. Now, I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of either, but I do have a preference for which I'd want to avoid the most. Now, as for why in lore some laser beams result in an ash pile and others don't, we will never be certain. I can only assume a few things. 1, not all emitted beams are created equal. Perhaps there is some variance during the process from battery to highly concentrated beam of light. This could result in the laser rifle infrequently firing a supercharged beam, leading to vaporization. Or perhaps to achieve vaporizing results, it would require a specific chain of events. Like, for example, hitting a certain organ or spot leads to the evaporation of your blood cells. From here, the hot blood steam causes other parts inside of you to evaporate and vaporize as well. Regardless, the takeaway is that the eventual vaporizing laser beam fired from a laser rifle is impacting with the equivalent energy of around 700 kilograms of TNT, something that you would definitely want to avoid. But regardless of the science and actual workings of the weapon, what sort of damage is expected? How would it really feel? Well, the true answer is that we wouldn't know, and not because there are no recorded incidents of someone miraculously surviving a laser blast or whatever. It just comes down to how fast your brain and nervous system works. The fastest signal our nervous system can send out is at a speed of 120 meters per second. And in fact, the parts of our body that send signals of pain only do it at 2 meters per second. That's less than 10 kilometers an hour or 5 miles per hour. But a beam of light, what is emitted from any laser, travels at the speed of light. The speed of light is approximately 300 million meters per second. This means that before you could even react, before you could feel an ounce of pain, you would cease to exist. You wouldn't know what hit you. You couldn't even get the chance to process what hit you. The vaporization would be quite instantaneous. Despite perhaps the lack of pain, the potential vaporization from an AER9 laser weapon is one of Fallout's worst ways to go. Instant extinction. That's all from me today, folks. Let me know what other topics you'd like to see for this series in the comments. Thanks for listening. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
Some genius got to tinkering with his laser. Polished metal barrel, a few prisms in there, and he got this lethal light show.